Hello everyone and welcome to the first Colorbox tutorial. Yay! So I'm going to, in this video, run through the basics on how this all works, though it might take some time, so I'm going to cut this up into some chapters for those who want to skip ahead and just find the section that appeals most to them. I'm going to be using this shoe model, kind of a shout out to Derek Elliott, the shoe guy. And I also wanted to shout out the creator, who is Louis Carley, a free model on TurboSquid. Super nice model. So I've gone ahead and just added in some colors and some different materials that will come in once we hit the color swapper tab. And forgive me for some mistakes. I'm kind of probably going to be doing this in one take, so it's going to be, I'm sure I'm going to flub on some of my words, but apologies ahead of time. I do have more tutorials planned, and I'm going to create a little series, but I just wanted something out there right now so people who are interested and want to support Colorbox can have a little bit more of a visual resource, if you will. So, basically, I think I'm going to be working through this in order. We're just going to go through the palettes, the color swapper, and the color ramps, as well as some of the user preferences. I'll try to cover some of the use cases, but I can't quite cover everything in this one just because it might be a little bit too long. So probably try to be moving at a nice little pace. So let's not wait any longer. Let's just dive right in. So starting with the palettes, you'll see this is on top. Generally, I like the color swapper to be on top. It ships with the color swapper on top, but that doesn't really make sense to start with. It's probably best to start with palettes first because that's kind of where this whole project began. So let's just get going. So the palettes tab. Here we have 3 buttons that help run the palettes. This basically adds in a collection. This imports folders of palettes or individual palettes from many different resources. One of my favorites is definitely Color Hunt. They have a really nice interface, and they have a nice way to kind of search through different color palettes here. You can go find some popular ones, all-time randoms, and even their search terms are really cool. So we'll be using that shortly. But that's for uploading palettes, and this is a custom image upload. So if you want to extract colors from images, scenes in movies, clips, screenshots, whatever, this is kind of a custom button that we're exploring, and that actually comes with some options and user preferences. So you can kind of customize how a Colorbox will be extracting colors from whatever images you're trying to import. So let's just go ahead and add a collection here. Now, once you have a collection, it pretty much works like a collection over on this side. You can, collapse it, and it has some options here to delete the collection. This toggles on some settings and settings for individual palettes, which I'll show you. And then this has some extra options, which we'll also go over. So I'm going to add in a row here. And this basically just adds in a palette that you can label. So I'll call it my palette. And once I do that, I basically am presented with this big RGB field. And I can now just select a color, like we'll go with this green. And this would be a 1-color palette, technically. And if I was to save right now, this would save to my blend file. And this exact hex code would be saved forever with the blend file ready to use for the next project. I only mention this because one of the big pushes for Colorbox was I had to do some freelancing, and I kept losing hex codes, and it was really annoying to constantly be searching for what was that color of blue or what was that shade of red. And the project kind of started around fixing that problem and grew into something a lot more fun. So now that we've added one, let's add in a few more. So I'll hit this plus button to add in a few more slots. And now you'll see that it's kind of made a shade. It's it's kind of added in some different colors. That's just kind of a cool little add. If you have to add in some slots, figured why not have some color already set up there, and you can maybe mess around. If you hit this minus button, you'll see that that actually gets rid of them. And this is somewhat based off of distance between colors. So if you'll see if this is green and yellow and I add 2 more, you'll get some interesting results. This is just kind of meant to be a filler. These are, you just add in these slots and then go ahead and add in those hex codes, or copy and paste in your hex codes if you needed to. And then once they're in here, they're saved. So now that we have a palette and we have our collection, we can probably show some of these little effector buttons. So of course this just deletes a collection or a palette. This just adds more tabs for a palette. You can add a bunch. This takes them all away. And then you'll see this little cog right here is settings for this palette. And there's quite a few things here. We have a little, these ordering buttons if you wanted to move these things around. Now the Blender UI here is pretty restricted. So this is our only option currently, but we would love to change this around and streamline it in the future, and we're definitely looking into that. But right now, if you did need to switch colors around in a palette, there is an option for that. We can also duplicate that palette. We can generate a PNG. This would be, I guess, a Colorbox export. So that would be a PNG that's specific to Colorbox that you can throw in a folder with any other types. You can have Adobe palettes, Color Hunt palettes, Colorbox exports, and even other palettes from other websites, all in one folder, and upload that into your Colorbox palettes. So that's what that one does. Add to swapper, I will show a little bit later. We also have effects for any palette, so you can sort by hue, do some gamma correction. We can reverse the order. We can even mix the colors all together, which works pretty similar to how you'd mix color. Like if I took this yellow and I added this blue and I went up here and went to my effects and mixed them, you get the green. And this could be useful for averaging colors with the picker. Another thing I'll be going over towards the end. Yeah, that pretty much covers it. Also, this would be the last one. This basically just converts a palette into a color ramp, which I will show probably once we get to the color ramps. So those are the settings, and then we just have these little move bars. Again, the Blender UI here is restricted, so the best way that we could come up with for moving is by selecting a handle and then finding the handle you want it to be switched with, and then they can swap places. I wish we could get a drag and drop, but that's just not possible with the Blender UI currently. But yeah, we won't dive into that hole. So yeah, so that covers the options for the palettes. Now up top on the collections, there are some similar ones. This little button right here toggles on the settings for every palette inside of a collection. So right now it's on by default, but if we turn that off, you kind of get a cleaner look for your palettes. So you don't, because if you have maybe 20 or 30 of them, all of these labels and buttons can get a little bit ugly looking. So turn that off, and now you have this kind of really clean looking colors, or clean looking palettes, I should say. Now, the cool part about this, as you can see, I'm affecting it in 2 places. Right now I have one open in my shader tab or shader window, and one open in my viewport. So you can do this from anywhere, but this is just kind of a cool little thing we discovered when building this, is you can drag a color anywhere over the Blender interface and it will not break. It'll stay hooked to your mouse. You could drag it from anywhere and drop it, and there you go. Now it's driving this this little color ramp. So you can drag in a lime green, we can drag in a red, and you could do that from up top, or you can just drag from down here. So that's kind of a way, if you had 20, 30 palettes open, you could just manually look through a big list of palettes and drag and drop colors as you see them. So that's what that switch does. Then we also have the settings, and for this is pretty similar. We have the show the buttons for all rows. That's just so if you have a bunch of palettes and you wanted to do a bunch of moving, it's there. And then we can duplicate a collection, reverse the order of the palettes, and even apply effects to an entire collection. If you have 30 palettes that you wanted to mix all together or to have sorted by hue or to gamma correct, that's all there. And we can also generate a PNG, which is basically many different palettes. So if you have 30 that you wanted to generate that you created inside of Blender, you can make a Colorbox export of all of those just with one click. And then you can also turn all of those into color ramps, which might be a little bit heavy depending on how many palettes you actually have, but that's also available. So, and then also the move handle works exactly the same as the palette move handle. So that is the buttons for the collections, the palettes. Now let's just quickly look at one of the features. I'm just going to add in this feature because I think it's pretty cool. So like if you have a corporate gig, let's just call this corporate gig. And if you had, maybe you had a job with Nike and they said, here's our project. We want you to use this Nike red and this Nike blue. A cool little feature here is let me just put in a blue here. So by just leaving these as not individuals, as a single color in a palette, this actually just stands in as a labeled color. So these now, if you save them to your blend file, would be saved. Next time you open it up, you have these very specific hex codes are saved directly into your blend file. So if you are working with maybe a Nike product and you forgot where that red was, or you're making a new object, some icosphere, and the shoe is hidden in the background, and you think, oh, I need that red, instead of going and finding that red or going to your notes and finding that hex code, now it can just be saved right to blend with, right to your blend file with the label, and yeah, drag and drop it. There you go. Never lose track of your hex codes again. So that was another little nightmare that I was running into constantly. So there's that. And so now that I've gone over the collections, the palettes, the settings, a few different use cases, let's just dive right into how you would upload or import a palette or a folder. So I'm going to just click this button, and now I'm presented with my little, what do I want to select? Let's see. Oh, actually, let's just go to Color Hunt. And let's just choose something to download so I can show you how this would work. So let's just go to random and let's look. This looks cool. So I'll click on it. And this works similar with Adobe. And if you don't have, if there's right now it's just Color Hunt and Adobe, but if there's another color palette website that you know of, please let us know. And we will just add support so it reads it perfectly and imports those palettes that you like. Okay, so let me just download this. I'll save it. And now if I go back here and go to import and go to my downloads, let's just turn on this. You can actually see it's right here, and I'll just say import palette. And now it's just imported this one palette, and it will just, if it's just a singular palette, then it will just take the name of that palette and apply it to the collection as well. Now, if you had a folder, I've set up a little folder ahead of time, very sneaky. I just called this palettes. Now I put 2 in here. You can have multiple, and they could be Adobe palettes, Color Hunt palettes, Colorbox exports, all within one folder called, my very colorful palettes. You can make another folder called my dark palettes and organize them however you wanted to, so you have your libraries organized. And now if I just hit import palettes, now it took the collection name from the folder, and then it took the individual palette names and applied them to where they should be. I hope that sounded right. Okay, so now you see that we just we went to a website, quickly downloaded some palettes, and now they're just right in Blender. No copying hex codes, very straightforward. And you can now, if you know some of these palettes are your favorite, you can rename them and organize them and customize them however you want. Or even maybe like take out a color or two and re-export them, and now you've made a whole nother set of palettes. I don't know. It'd be fun to hear what you guys actually come up with, and I'm very eager to hear back from artists and how they might use this. And yeah, very, very interesting. So there's how you would import some palettes. We'll just leave all this because that one is bothering me. I'm gonna call this Jobby. I don't even know why. All right, and then I guess I could, yeah, I'll throw this in. So this will be interesting. Now this isn't set up, but I'm just gonna grab this diffuse map. Now this might be kind of crazy because so this is kind of, we have a preset just out of the box, but you can see I grabbed that and it's extracted, looks like, yeah, 8-9 colors here. Now this varies by image, so that's why, I guess I'll just show you really quick. If you're gonna use this one, if we go to edit and we go to preferences and we go to our add-on tabs and we go to Colorbox, you'll see right here there's a custom import panel, and you can mess around with these settings to tweak them if this is something that you might find useful in your workflow. There are ways to tweak all that stuff right here. So we'll probably dive into this just at the very end a little bit further. But okay, so now we've covered all of these buttons. We've got the palettes, collections, use case. Cool, let's just move on. All right, now we're at the color swapper. So this is a fun ad that has been surprisingly interesting. So I'm gonna swap that pun to the top, and we'll look at some of our palettes here. Actually, I'm kind of curious what happens if I go to my preferences. Now this is another option. So if you have a bunch of setups here, and you're wanting a library to be permanently saved to the actual, I don't exactly know how it's saved in there, but it's actually saved to disk. So if we load Colorbox from disk, I've gone ahead and made my own color stuff folder. Now you'll see that it overrides. I'll just say overrides what I had previously there. And it's just however you have it set up. If you have a big library here, and you don't want to create folders, you can actually create a big library, save it to disk, and then this basically is available anytime right from that user preference menu. So I've just made this big folder here of palettes that we're going to use on this color swapper, and you will see now everything that I had is all gone. I should be able to just Control Z that. So now we have all that stuff back, and let's see if I can redo. Oh, cool. Awesome. So there you go. A little bit of undo redo action. So I'm just going to now just delete all that stuff, and I'll just stick with this big color stuff bundle, and I'm just going to add a new one just for use case in the color swapper called Vol. I don't even know why. I'm just coming up with crazy names today. We'll just add a quick little palette here just so you can see the use in the color swapper. All right, so on to the color swapper. All right, so this is kind of a way to mix up your scenes, drive certain sections of your scenes with color, and save some tedious, if I'll show you that basically I have 4 materials all run with one color, and if I didn't have the color swapper, I would have to go to every one of those materials and switch the color out, like switch this color ramp, and then I'd have to switch out the heel and the stitching and the stripes. But right now I basically just have it set to run off of the swapper. So how this works essentially is, we'll start from top to bottom. You can navigate turn this off. I'll tell you about that in a second. You can navigate through your collections. That's why I made one more collection, so you can see you can navigate between as many collections as you have, and then you can navigate between, I only have one palette in there, but if you go to color stuff, you can see I can navigate through all of the palettes that I have inside of this collection. And now I can drag these colors right from the palette onto this channel, and you'll see now there is that influence the laces. I guess that should be stitching, the base, the sole, I guess, the tip, which is this metallic gradient right here, and then the stripes, these the less dominant stripes right here on the side. So there's a little bit to unpack here. Basically, you have to look at these as channels. So if this was channel 0, channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, you can see right here we have channel 0, channel 1, channel 2, channel 3. So when I hit apply, it's going to take these channels and replace them into these collection slots. And I guess these would be considered right here. These are all collections. And you can see I have several RGB fields under this one in particular. So if I hit this button, it just took that and put them in the appropriate channels, and everything, all the children under these collections, if you will, are then going to be driven by the color that it was replaced with. So let's see, I think this is the one field that's not. We can. I'll show you how to add in a child, I guess. So right now I can tell that oh no, maybe this is added. Yeah, let's see, I'll drag in this red. Oh, perfect. Okay, it is actually. So, so basically, how you would add something into this collection is by selecting the collection that you want, and then let's say I wanted these pieces to be driven by the channel 1 or collection 0, collection secondary, whatever. Then I would go to this RGB field, I'd right click on it, and I would just add it to this channel, and you can see it popped up here. If I wanted to get rid of that, I can just minus that from my collection. I think I have, no. Oh, cool. And yeah, Control Z will undo that. We'll undo your most recent actions, I guess. So, you can add in pretty much every RGB field in the node editor, though there's some, now I've heard some requests from grease pencil, I think lights we've yet to add. Anything else you guys find, maybe world colors, something that might not work quite yet, but please let me know if you guys have found any color fields that aren't able to add to the swapper. Let me know so that we can support those and add those in. So let's just play around with this for a second. So let's say, I have this really cool, this is kind of a cool setup. Let me now go to maybe this kind of watermelon color palette here. And I just hit apply palette, boom. And now it's replaced all those and quickly getting a whole different look for the shoe. And you can see as I run through here, you can build some really interesting looks quickly. Now, what if you had a palette, say like this? I'll apply this, but I don't like how dominant the yellow is. Well, we have this little shuffle button, and if you hit that, you're gonna actually shuffle the colors that are just in just the collections right here. So you'll see after I click this, and I can switch palettes over here, and as I hit the shuffle button, the only thing that's gonna happen are these colors in here are just gonna shuffle around to give you some different looks. Like that. Maybe that looks pretty cool. So that's a way to kind of mix things up, keep it interesting. Another feature we have is auto apply. So if you check this on, then as you scroll, it just will automatically apply, which is pretty cool because then you can just do some really quick color changing and mix it up and move to the next one, mix, and move on. So that's a lot of ways. It gives you a lot of possibilities and ways to iterate quickly over different color schemes. Now, let's say let's say I wanted this purple in here to be part of this the secondary channel, or channel 1, I guess you could call it. So I'm going to select this right here, just this little piece, and I will just make sure that, select this piece, and I don't know why that's in there. Get rid of that. So I'm going to go to this actually I want the pink. Yeah, I want that pink to be driven. So now I have the pink selected. I have this RGB field available. I'm over the secondary collection that's highlighted, and all I have to do is right click and add to color swapper, and now it will be driven by this channel. So as I switch, now you can see it's overridden that, and now it's at the it's being driven as well on that. Now if you have, let's say, oh, this is cool. So let's say you had something like this pretty interesting look, but you wanted some, like you liked all of the colors but one. Well, maybe we could take off this auto apply, do some searching, and you could just grab a green and just drive it that way. So there's still ways to mix up palettes, even if you're trying to, even if you like 75% or 80% of the palette, you can just easily switch one of these to a blue or to a green, and that will be driven appropriately. Oh, I think I took out that strip accent, so that's no longer represented by this lime green. So to add that back in, we just go right here, we'd go to the strip accent, and then we would just add it back in. And now you can see it's just back in action and working perfectly. Okay, cool. So I don't want to get too carried away here. Oh, one last thing I'll just add really quick is if I deleted all of these channels, it just gets rid of all of that information, but you can see now all of those colors have just stuck. So now it will just leave whatever's there. And now if you had like another object, you could actually set up a color swapper for a whole different object. And this is all set and ready to go, and it will just store those values for next time, just right here. Okay, cool. Droning on. All right, so let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. And we're very much looking to advance this tool and make it better, but we kind of had to put it out there. And does anyone like this? Does anyone care? If you guys do, let me know. Give me a thumbs up. Write me, and I'd love to explore this further and add features and make it even better. So let's not get too carried away with the color swapper. So we've gone over the palettes, color swapper. Let's just dive really quickly into the color ramps. So for color ramps, you can just create a color. So I've made a collection. This is just one big button that just adds collections to color ramps. You can make a collection right here. We'll just call this Dub Ramps. Hope somebody gets that joke. Dub Ramps. And we will create, 2 color ramps. So I'll make one that's just a constant, throw in a green, and this one will just, I don't know, maybe make it like that. Okay, so now we have 2 color ramps. For color ramps, they're not really usable in the viewport. The cool thing about the color swapper or the palettes, you could say, is that you could actually be in full screen and drive your scenes and affect those colors without having to look at the node editor, which is pretty cool. But for the color ramps, you actually have to have that open in the node editor for that to work properly. So how this would work is, let's say you built a cool color ramp and you wanted to use it in your scene. You just click this add button right here, and you'll see it just pops right into your node editor, and you can just plug it right in, ready to go. That's not set up though. Let's just get rid of that. So that's one way you could make a color ramp right here and add it into your scene. But I think the more useful thing would be if you had a palette that looked pretty interesting, like this one looks pretty cool. Granted, I have my settings turned off, so you need those available. So if I clicked on my settings, there's a little option here for adding to the collection or adding to a new color ramp collection, I'm just going to add it to dub ramps. Click on that, and now if we go down to my ramps, the dub ramps, you'll see that that was added right into the ramps, and I can just click that right onto my node editor, and boom. Granted, you can't really see it because it has no texture coordinates and it's not set up properly, but there it is, ready to use. Now, if you also created, maybe if you made this constant, you wanted a kind of a cool custom look, or you had your own color ramps that you'd been working on for a long time. Oh, can I make that? Not enough time. Okay. So if you made this custom, you're making a color ramp that you want to use again, let's maybe make this red or something, then you can actually create a whole color ramp, right click it. You have to select it, then right click, and you can actually add to Colorbox. So you can see right now I've added in a color ramp, and if you were to save your blend file, it's going to save to your blend file. And this is something I'd like some feedback from the community, because right now, you can, right here in the materials tab, you'll notice there is a section called Colorbox color ramps. That's just kind of how it works. It basically just adds in a bunch of nodes right here. So you could technically append them if you had a bunch that you really liked, wanted to save. Granted, I guess you could just do that normally with the blend file, so that's not really cool. Probably the only feature where you can really save a lot of color ramps right now is saving to disk. But we would love to kind of come up with a way for people who really like this feature to do something similar with palettes and have these in their own collections of gradients. So you could use a ton of different gradients and shop through a bunch of different looks that way. But again, this is experimental, and we want to kind of hear some feedback. And is anybody interested in that feature? Let me know. So we won't spend too much time here. There's a few settings. You could duplicate it, move them, switch them around, rename them. That's pretty much the color ramp. That's a little bit more experimental. I'm kind of curious how people would use that, or if someone sees a use case or some interest. And yeah, let's just go to the user preferences, and doing pretty good. Okay, so let's just check those out, and then we'll call it good here. So let's go to the preferences. Oh, the color picker. That was what I forgot. But we'll run through user preferences and do the color picker last. So for the main settings, I'll just run through some of these really quick. This is just setting up how many colors per row. We have it set by default as 6, but you could have it set to whatever. So if you wanted it at 2, or you could have as many as I don't know. What's our max here? 20. We have 20 right now. If someone needs more than 20, let me know. And you can also set their height, width, all that good stuff can be customized here. The import and exports, there's some options here. If you want to export, you can set up your directory to your desktop. So if I wanted to export this crazy palette right here, you would set up your output directory, and then if you clicked right here and generated a PNG, that would just put your PNG to where you've selected flub. Okay, and then there's some others a little bit more nerdy programming options here that I won't get into, and the custom stuff I'll leave that for those who really want to dive deep. The color picker, I'll show you that in one moment. This just adjusts the scale, so I'll hop to it in a second. And you can just make the tool bigger or smaller depending on what works for your use case. Then here again is your save and load options and our little info tab for supporting Blender, and check out the website. So let's just do the color picker last, hop into that. So the color picker's just a cool little add, because I really did not like having to add colors individually, and sometimes you need some use cases there are some use cases where you need to select a bunch of colors. So if I go to my image editor, this is the only place that the picker works, and I were to select, okay, we'll just use this HDRI that I have open. So if I was to go to this image, by default we have Control-Shift-P is going to activate the color picker, And you'll see this color box icon here. That just means that you're in a mode. It's kind of this, it's like this overlay that is taking control of the Blender interface. So you will get some weird reactions as long as this mode is on. And so just make sure that when you're done, you either hit enter or escape and it will cancel out of this mode. And so as long as this little symbol's here, you're in this kind of special color picker mode. And you can see if I click around on the image, I can grab a ton of colors here. Oh, I also adjusted my color width here, so that's why it's so long. Normally it's pretty tight, but I'll actually show you. And I just hit enter, and you can see all those colors were added right to my palettes. And if I just wanted to turn those into a color ramp really quick, I could just go right here and add to the ramps. And then you'll see at the bottom of my ramps, bam, there's a huge, crazy color ramp here built off of that selection. But as just a last little add, I'll show you that. So I can increase the scale. So I could say 2.5. We'll change that. I could turn hex codes on. If you want to see the hex codes, it's by default. The picker shows the hex code. But if you want them on every color, that's also available. Or turn both of them off. And I think if I was to set this to maybe 4, that would be the influencer behind the picker. So I'll just save those. Get out of here and Control-Shift-P. Now I have a huge color picker. Oh, that's kind of crazy. A little bit of a break here. Okay, that was very interesting. And now you can see that we could select a bunch of colors. Now I blew that up a little bit too big, but there you go. There's some cool options. So I'll just rip up to the top here, and now you can see those colors that I added are right here under this little selection. Okay, so yeah, we'll call it good. Let me know what you think. I have a lot more stuff coming out about this. I just wanted to create kind of a quick raw video showing this, so if anyone's interested, they can check it out, see some use cases. More stuff is on the way. I hope that you guys enjoy Colorbox. Please don't hesitate to write or do some feature requests. Follow us on IG. We'll have more updates and more tutorials are on the way. So I appreciate you guys supporting this, checking it out. I'll see you in the next video.